The notification chimed softly on Elena's phone during a humid August evening in Port Harcourt. She had just settled into her modest apartment after a long shift at the pharmacy where she worked, still wearing her white uniform, her braids pulled back in a neat ponytail. The name flashed across her screen, Maxwell Chukwudi. Elena didn't recognize him. His profile displayed an impeccably dressed man, leaning against a silver Mercedes, sunglasses reflecting what appeared to be a Dubai skyline. She nearly dismissed it as another spam account, but curiosity pulled her finger toward the message icon. "Good evening, Queen. Your profile caught my attention. There's something genuine about your smile that made me want to reach out." She couldn't help but grin. The message felt different from the usual desperate attempts that flooded her inbox. His profile showed he lived in the United Arab Emirates, had 63 mutual friends, and claimed to work in international logistics. The photos portrayed a lifestyle most Nigerians only dreamed about: rooftops, restaurants, business class flights, luxury hotel suites. After staring at her phone for nearly 10 minutes, Elena typed a simple response: "Thank you, that's kind of you to say." That single reply became the thread that would unravel her entire existence. Within weeks, Maxwell had woven himself into the fabric of Elena's daily routine. He called her every morning at precisely 6:30, his deep voice greeting her before she even had her first cup of tea. At night, just before she drifted to sleep, her phone would ring with his evening check-in. The airtime credits appeared in her phone regularly, never announced, just there when she needed them. Small gifts began arriving at her workplace: a bottle of perfume one week, a new handbag the next, always delivered by courier services, with handwritten notes that made her co-workers jealous. "Elena, this man is seriously feeling you," her colleague Blessing would tease. "Examining the latest package. When am I going to meet someone who sends me designer bags from Dubai?" Elena laughed, but deep inside, questions whispered in the corners of her mind. What exactly did Maxwell do that generated so much wealth? Whenever she probed about his business details, he deflected with charm. "Baby girl, it's complicated. International trade stuff, importing electronics, exporting commodities. Nothing you need to stress your beautiful head about. Just know that I am building an empire for us." The word "us" melted her resistance every time. Her best friend Choma wasn't as easily convinced. During one of their Saturday afternoon hangouts at their favorite booker, Choma leaned across the table, her expression serious. "Elena, I'm happy you found someone who treats you well. But don't you think it's strange that after 4 months, you still don't really know what this man does? And why hasn't he video called you from his office or shown you his workplace?" Elena felt defensive. Not everyone wants to broadcast their business dealings, Chioma. Some successful people prefer privacy. Chioma raised her hands in surrender. "I'm just saying, be careful. These internet relationships can hide many things." But Elena was already too deep. Her heart had made decisions her mind couldn't reverse. When Maxwell announced he was flying into Nigeria for their traditional marriage, Elena's entire family compound erupted in celebration. He arrived like royalty 2 weeks before the ceremony, checking into the Transcorp Hilton in Abuja, then making his grand entrance to Enugu State in a convoy of rented souls. The meeting with Elena's family became legendary in their village. Maxwell came bearing gifts that left everyone speechless: expensive wrappers for the women, premium whiskey for the men, an envelope containing 200,000 naira for Elena's father, and a promise to set up Elena's mother with a provision store. Elena's father, a retired civil servant who had struggled to send his children to school, could barely contain his joy. "My daughter has married well," he announced to anyone who would listen. The traditional wedding ceremony was magnificent. Maxwell spared no expense. A live band, professional photographers, decorators who transformed the compound into something from a magazine. Elena wore 3 different outfits, each more stunning than the last. The food was abundant, the drinks flowed freely, and guests danced into the evening. For those perfect 2 weeks, Elena felt like she was living in a dream. Maxwell was attentive, generous, and constantly reminded her of the beautiful future they would build together. "I'm setting up a business account for you," he told her one night as they sat on the hotel balcony. "I want you to start that boutique you've always talked about. No wife of mine will struggle." When he returned to the United Arab Emirates, Elena moved into his family home in Enugu as custom dictated. His mother and 2 younger sisters welcomed her with open arms, treating her like the precious addition to their family she believed herself to be. 3 months after Maxwell's departure, Elena discovered she was pregnant. The news spread through the family like wildfire, bringing even more celebration. His mother immediately began making plans for the baby's arrival, knitting tiny clothes and discussing names. Elena gave birth to a healthy baby boy during a rainy November morning. They named him Ebubechukwu, God's mercy. The child was beautiful, with his father's light complexion and Elena's expressive eyes. Maxwell sent money for the naming ceremony but couldn't attend due to what he called crucial business negotiations. Elena felt disappointed but understood or convinced herself she did. As months passed, a troubling pattern emerged. While Elena was home caring for their son, Maxwell's social media account told a different story. She would scroll through photos of him at beach clubs in Dubai, posing with bottles of expensive champagne, wearing designer clothes she didn't recognize, always surrounded by other young people living equally lavish lifestyles. Her messages to him often went unanswered for days. When he did respond, his replies were brief, dismissive of her concerns. "Baby, I'm networking, building connections. This is all for us." But it didn't feel like it was for them. It felt like she was watching someone else's life through a screen, a life that had no room for a wife and child back home. Chioma visited one afternoon and found Elena staring at her phone, tears streaming down her face as she looked at yet another party photo. "Elena, what is this man really doing over there? And why does he act single online?" He's just focused on work," Elena defended weakly. But even she no longer believed her own words. Then came the phone call that would change everything. "Pack your bags, baby," Maxwell's voice crackled with excitement through the phone. "I'm flying you and Ebube out here for a holiday. 2 weeks in Dubai, shopping, sightseeing, the works, and I've already purchased the tickets. They'll be emailed to you tomorrow." Elena's heart soared. Finally, she would see where he lived, understand his life, and they would be together as a family. When she shared the news, her mother-in-law was thrilled. Only Chioma's warning gave her pause. "Elena, please be careful. Something about this sudden invitation doesn't sit right with me. Why now? Why so sudden?" But Elena was too excited to listen. She had waited so long for this moment. The Dubai International Airport was massive, gleaming, overwhelming. Elena had never traveled internationally before. She clutched baby Ebube tightly, managing their luggage and the special bag Maxwell had asked her to bring, a large designer suitcase he had sent to Nigeria a month earlier, asking her to pack it with traditional items and baby things for their stay. As she approached immigration, her phone buzzed with a message from Maxwell. "Almost there, baby. Can't wait to see you both." She never got to respond. Within minutes of presenting her passport, 3 airport security officers surrounded her. Their faces were stern, their body language commanding. "Ma'am, please step aside. Bring all your luggage." "Is something wrong?" Elena's voice trembled. "My husband is waiting for me outside." They didn't answer. Instead, they escorted her to a private room where they began scanning her bags with specialized equipment. When they opened the designer suitcase Maxwell had sent, they removed every item methodically. That's when they found it, hidden in the double lining of the suitcase, invisible to anyone who didn't know to look for it, were packages containing nearly 3 kilograms of cocaine. Elena's world shattered in that moment. She screamed, she cried, she clutched her confused baby as officials complained she was being arrested for international drug trafficking. That's not mine. I didn't know. My husband packed that bag. Please. I'm just a pharmacist from Nigeria. I will never. Her protest fell on deaf ears. This was their job. They had heard every excuse, unimaginable and imaginable ones. She was allowed one phone call with shaking hands. She dialed Maxwell's number. It rang and went to voicemail. She tried again. This time, the number was switched off. Terror consumed her as the reality crystallized. Maxwell had used her. She was the mole, an unknowing career, and now he had vanished. The detention center was cold, sterile, and terrifying. Elena was processed through a system that treated her like a criminal statistic. Her baby was taken from her arms, screaming. She later learned he would be deported back to Nigeria in the custody of embassy officials. The trial came swiftly. Her court-appointed lawyer tried his best, but the evidence was damning. The drugs were in her possession. She had carried them across international borders under UAE law. The sentence was severe. 20 years in prison. Elena fainted when the verdict was read. When she gained consciousness in her cell, she wished she had died instead. The prison was full of women with similar stories, victims of romance scams, desperate migrants who made terrible choices, and yes, some genuine criminals. Elena learned quickly that in this place, your story didn't matter, only your sentence did. She wrote letters constantly to the Nigerian embassy, begging for intervention, to Maxwell's family, pleading for information, to her own family, apologizing for the shame she had brought. Few letters received responses. Maxwell's family eventually stopped all communication, claiming they had disowned him for bringing disgrace upon them. Months turned into years. Elena watched other prisoners come and go. She missed her son's first words, his first steps, his first day of school. She received occasional photos from her sister Ebube, growing up in their family compound, raised by her aging parents, asking questions about his mother that no one knew how to answer. The weight of guilt and heartbreak aged her beyond her years. Her hair began to grey at 28. Her eyes lost their light. At night, she would whisper prayers, sometimes to God, sometimes to her mother, sometimes just in the void. Why did I trust him? Why didn't I ask more questions? Why was I so naive? 5 years into her sentence, a guard delivered devastating news, a letter from Nigeria. Her mother had passed away from a stroke. The chaplain found Elena collapsed in her cell, inconsolable. The woman who had believed in her innocence, who had written her encouraging letters every month, who had promised to take care of Ebube until Elena returned, was gone. Elena couldn't attend the funeral. She couldn't hold her mother's hand one last time. She couldn't even properly grieve because in prison, vulnerability was dangerous. That night, something hardened inside her. She stopped writing letters. She stopped hoping Maxwell would develop a conscience. She stopped praying for miracles. She decided to survive. After 12 years of model behavior, legal appeals, and intervention from international human rights organizations who took interest in her case, Elena's sentence was commuted. She was released and deported back to Nigeria. She stepped off the plane in Lagos with nothing, no money, no home, no plan. She had aged dramatically. The vibrant young woman who left was now a hollowed-out shell who had learned to trust no one. Her first thought was her son. Her second was Maxwell. With a borrowed phone, she called his last known number. Miraculously, someone answered. Maxwell, is Elena. There was a pause, then a voice she barely recognized. Harder, colder. Listen to me carefully. You need to forget I exist. If you contact me again, if you try to find me, if you tell anyone anything, I will make sure you disappear properly this time. Do you understand? The line went dead. Elena sat on a bench at the motor park, tears streaming down her face, passengers rushing past her, nobody noticing another broken woman in Lagos. Elena wandered Lagos for several days, staying in cheap hotels, eating once a day, contemplating whether life was worth continuing. One Sunday morning, she heard singing coming from a small church wedged between two buildings in Yaba. She walked in, not because she believed anymore, but because she had nowhere else to go. The pastor spoke about redemption, about second chances, about the God who rebuilt what was broken. For the first time in years, Elena felt something stir inside her chest, not quite hope, but perhaps his distant cousin. After the service, a man approached her. He was tall, gentle-eyed, wearing simple clothes that spoke of humility rather than poverty. "You look like you are carrying the weight of the world," he said softly. "My name is Samuel. Would you like some tea?" Elena almost declined. She had learned to distrust kindness. But something about Samuel felt different, authentic in the way she hadn't encountered in over a decade. Over tea at the nearby canteen, she told him everything. She expected judgment, disgust, or at least uncomfortable silence. Instead, Samuel listened with complete attention, nodding occasionally, his eyes never leaving hers. When she finished, he said something that changed everything. "You survived something that would have destroyed most people. That's no weakness, Elena. That's extraordinary strength." Samuel was a vocational trainer who worked with former prisoners, helping them reintegrate into society. He offered Elena a place in his program, learning tailoring, hairdressing, and entrepreneurship. More importantly, he offered him his time. He would visit her at the women's shelter where she was staying, bringing food, conversation, and slowly laughter back into her life. 6 months later, he asked her to marry him. "I can't give you luxury," he said honestly, "but I can give you safety, respect, and a partner who sees you for who you truly are, not who you pretend to be." Elena cried, but this time from relief rather than pain. Their wedding was simple, just 20 people in the same small church where they met. No expensive clothes, no elaborate decorations, just two people who had both known hardship, choosing to face the future together. They rented a small 2-room apartment in the Surulere area. Samuel continued his training work while Elena joined a cooperative society that created handmade crafts for sale. The money was modest, but it was honest. At night, they would sit together, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes sharing their dreams. Samuel never made her feel shame about her past. He never threw her mistakes in her face during arguments. He simply loved her as she was. 2 years into her marriage with Samuel, Elena was at the market when she overheard women gossiping near the pepper stall. "Did you hear about that terrible accident on Benin-Ore Expressway? That playboy from Enugu and his girlfriend both dead instantly." "Which one?" another woman asked. "Maxwell, something or what?" "Chokode. I think the one who was always flashing money on social media. Kama has finally caught up with him." Elena's shopping basket slipped from her hands. Onions and tomatoes rolled across the ground as she stood frozen. The women discontinued, oblivious to her reaction. I heard he was still involved in drug running. Probably owed the wrong people. They saw the accident wasn't really an accident. As they said, if you know what I mean. Elena didn't remember walking home. She found herself sitting outside their apartment, staring at nothing, when Samuel returned from work. He knew immediately, without asking questions. He sat beside her, took her hand, and simply held it. "He's gone," she finally whispered. Samuel nodded. "The past had no more power over you now. Let it stay buried." Through a church member with connections in Enugu, Elena finally got information about her son. Ebube was now 14 years old, living with Maxwell's distant cousin who had taken him in reluctantly after Maxwell's death. With Samuel's encouragement, Elena made the journey to Enugu. Her heart pounded as she knocked on the compound gate. A teenager opened it, tall, lanky, with Elena's eyes but Maxwell's bone structure. He stared at her with zero recognition. "Can I help you?" he asked politely. "Ebube," she whispered, tears already falling. "I'm your mother." His face hardened. My mother abandoned me and went to prison for drugs. You must have the wrong person. Please let me explain. Leave, his voice cracked. I don't need your explanations now. The gate closed in her face. Elena sat on the roadside sobbing while Samuel held her, but she didn't give up. Over the next year, Elena wrote letters to Ebube. She sent them through his school, his church, any avenue she could find. She never demanded anything. She never insisted he forgives her. She simply told him the truth, all of it. She also began speaking publicly about her experience at women's conferences, youth programs, church events, anywhere people would listen. Her message was simple. Know who you marry, ask questions, don't ignore warning signs, and understand that love without truth is dangerous. One evening, during a speaking engagement in Abuja, Elena noticed a young man standing at the back of the hall, her breath caught. It was Ebube. After her talk, he approached hesitantly. I read all your letters, he said quietly, and I found the newspaper articles about your case, about women trafficked unknowingly. I think I understand now. Elena didn't move, afraid he would disappear. Can I? His voice broke. Can I get to know my real mother? She wrapped her arms around him, both of them crying, years of separation and pain flooding out in that embrace. Ebube chose to live with Elena and Samuel. It wasn't easy at first. He had anger, questions, moments of resentment, but slowly, with family counseling and unwavering patience, they built something real. Samuel treated Ebube as his own son, never overstepping but always present. They established routines, celebrated small victories, and created new memories that gradually overshadowed the painful ones. Elena opened a small counseling center called Second Sunrise, specifically for women who had been victims of romance scams, trafficking, or wrongful imprisonment. She didn't just offer advice, she offered proof that recovery was possible. Women would arrive broken just as she once was, and live with hope, not false hope, but the realistic kind that acknowledged pain while still choosing to move forward. Ebube graduated secondary school with excellent grades. During his valedictory speech, he said something that made Elena cry in the audience. My mother taught me that your worst mistake doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. She's my hero, not because she never fell, but because she got back up. On the anniversary of her release from prison, Elena visited her mother's grave in their village. She brought fresh flowers and sat on the ground beside the headstone, talking as if her mother could hear. Mama, I wish you could see Ebube now. He's so smart, so strong, and Samuel, you would love him. Mama, he's nothing like Maxwell. He's real. The wind rustled through the trees and Ella smiled. I forgive myself now, Mama. I forgive the girl who was too trusting, too naive, too desperate to be loved. Understand now that she was just human. She placed the flowers gently and stood, feeling lighter than she had in 15 years. That evening, Elena sat on a small balcony with Samuel and Ebube, watching the sunset paint the Lagos sky in shades of orange and purple. They were eating rice and stew, laughing about something silly about Ebube had said. It was ordinary, simple, beautiful. Her life had once been buried under lies, betrayal, and unspeakable pain, but she had done the impossible. She had risen again, not because she was extraordinary, but because she refused to let her story end in darkness. Years later, when Elena spoke at conferences, she would always end with the same message. Know who you marry. Love is beautiful, but it must be built on truth. Take time to truly understand someone's character, their values, their reality, not just their promises. Ask the difficult questions. Investigate when something feels wrong. Listen to people who love you when they express consent. Red flags exist for a reason. Your heart is precious. Your future is valuable. Don't give either to someone you don't truly know, no matter how charming they seem or how desperately you want to be loved. And if you've already made that mistake, if you're living in the consequences of trusting the wrong person, hear this. Your story isn't over. Pain can be transformed into purpose. Mistakes can become messages that help others. You can rise again. Audiences will stand and applaud. But Elena knew the truth. She wasn't sharing her story for applause. She was sharing it so that somewhere a young woman staring at the message from a stranger might pause, might question, might protect herself from the path Elena once walked. Because knowing who you marry doesn't just affect your future, it determines whether you have the future you deserve. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story and you learned a lot from it. Do come back for more interesting stories. Thank you. Bye.